lights down. Hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of MGR Unplugged. We're not going to talk much about GameStop today. Just now that the frenzy seems to be kind of tapering down.
Where's it at now? Like 60 a share, I think?
GameStop, I don't know. Yesterday went down to 80 or something.
I think I looked this morning. I think it was down to the 60s.
I think it's back to normal. Yeah, everything.
Well, it's not back to normal.
Definitely not back to normal, but back to more realistic numbers. What is it now?
57 at the time of recording this.
So. All right, so we went from 500 that we peaked last week to about 50 something now. But it looks like so you, Mr. Robinhood, what do you think is going to happen to Robinhood, which, by the way, is trying to go public this year at some point?
What's going to happen to them? I mean,
do you think it's going to hurt them? Because I heard actually that actually help them more than hurt them. That they have much more downloads now in the App Store than they used to have before.
I mean, I definitely think it hurt their reputation long term. I think that's, it's very hard to build up trust, and it's very easy to lose it.
Yeah.
And so they definitely lost a lot of people's trust. Now, the benefit, I mean, they raised like $4 billion in a week, which, frankly, they probably should have raised that money sooner because clearly they had liquidity issues, and that's why they had to shut down.
Right.
And then, I mean, there's going to be lawsuits, but that takes forever, so I have no idea.
And proving all kinds of shit and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I have no idea what's going to happen with that. I mean, they'll probably be fine. I'll be very curious to see what happens with their IPO. But, I mean, at the end of the day, they weren't the only one who did it, who shut down the trading.
Right.
And it was basically a compliance thing where they didn't have a choice because they didn't have the liquidity.
Right.
So
the only thing that I think they did differently than other brokerages is that they didn't allow one side of the trade. They only allowed the selling and not the buying.
Yeah.
Which other brokerages said, okay, we're going to halt completely, GameStop or AMC, so whatever. But they said we don't allow people to buy. And then they said, well, you can buy one, you can buy 10, 20. I mean, they were like trickling into going back to normal. So anyways, we beat that horse to death last week. And but it's funny how it was like the hot topic last week everywhere, podcasts everywhere, including ourselves, obviously. And then this week is like history, it's kind of like. But speaking of this week, we have a Super Bowl coming this Sunday. Any preferences?
I'm not a huge football guy, so I don't really care who wins. I mean, I'll root for Brady just because.
You do?
Sure.
But, I mean, yeah, Brady is the good story and all that stuff. But realistically, your money on the line, which team
No,
do you
realistically, if you look at the betting line, I think it was like Kansas City by 3 or something.
Oh, really? I didn't look.
And I thought that was low. I thought it was going to be like Kansas City by 6. So if you're a betting man, not that this is betting advice, but I would take Kansas City because I think it was like minus 3.5 or something.
I
thought it would be Kansas City by at least 6.
My unofficial bet is Kansas City by a touchdown, by 7.
Yeah.
Probably a high scoring game, maybe high scoring depending, but maybe like a 35-28 or something like that. Like the winner will be in the 30s.
Yeah.
And I think Kansas City will be winning by a touchdown. I love the Brady story, and honestly, he's gone he's done much more than anybody expected at the beginning of the season. So, but I think Patrick Mahomes is kind of good to see that he may win 2 in a row, and now he's the new young star, establishing himself. And Brady, he's done Super Bowl.
The interesting thing is Mahomes is so young. If he already has his second, I think it'll be the same thing,
right?
Same age,
right,
as Brady when he got his second.
Exactly.
So Mahomes really could. Obviously, the big question is that Brady's career has been so fucking long,
right?
Like it's 42, 43?
43 or 44. I have no idea.
don't know. He's so old. Obviously, that's an abnormality. Who knows if Mahomes is going to be able to do that? But at least as far as the early career trajectory, Mahomes is already there. And Kansas City is really good. I mean,
Yeah, but at the same time, again, Brady, this is his 10th Super Bowl, and last 2 weeks ago he had his 14th championship game. So it's not just Mahomes being a good quarterback, which I mean,
right,
he's still
but
getting
Mahomes
there,
is
but it's
24,
also
and if he wins,
no,
he'll
I
have
understand,
2.
but the team, whether he stays always in Kansas City or whatever, the team needs to do well too. So it's not just
Well, of course. I mean, that's always the case.
Exactly. So I think
I mean, Tampa Bay, Brady's the headline, but really the defense is probably more responsible, quite frankly.
Either way, this is also the first time that, which I thought that was amazing too, the first time the Super Bowl is played where one of the Super Bowl teams, contenders, is actually the home team. And it happens with Tampa Bay. I mean, I would imagine that in the 55 Super Bowls that we've had so far, 54, this is the 55th, with all the major cities that have hosted the Super Bowl, including cities in California, in Texas, in Florida, and all these major states and major cities, that at some point maybe Dallas was hosting their Super Bowl or any LA team or something, and it's never happened. And you'd have never thought that Tampa Bay, from all places, was going to be hosting their home team.
Thing,
I know it's a chance, but when Tampa Bay bid on hosting the Super Bowl and it was awarded to the city, I bet you they never expected their team to be basically making it, So that's an interesting factor, is first off. As far as, commercials and all that stuff, we would probably do Super Bowl recap of the commercials review like we did last year. But I've read that major advertisers are pulling out of this year's Super Bowl. And between them, I mean, some of them are Pepsi, Coca-Cola too, and Budweiser is not going to have their Budweiser commercial. Some of the brands will be there, but not the famous brand with the Clydesdales and stuff. And some other major advertisers are decided not to do this year's Super Bowl for whatever reason. Some of them say that they're going to dedicate the money to COVID funding and vaccination stuff. Other companies say, hey, we have better ways to spend our money these days than $5.5 million for a 30-second spot. I think is the going rate for this year. So the other one final point for the Super Bowl is attendance. I was kind of curious to see how many people will be able to or will be allowed to go to the stadium. And it turns out that they will allow 25,000 people, which is actually a pretty good crowd. The stadium, the Tampa Bay Stadium, is has a 65,000 capacity, I think. So they think they'll have 25,000 people and about 35,000 cutouts or whatever to simulate people. And then the rest obviously is just media, journalists, families, whatever, But 25,000 people, that's pretty decent.
That's a lot.
It'll be the lowest Super Bowl attendance in many years, of course, but considering the situation, I think it's pretty good. The championship games had pretty decent attendance too, as far as having fans in the stands.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what the numbers were, but yeah.
I don't remember the numbers, but just visually, it looked pretty good, both in Kansas and Kansas City. And what was the other? Yeah. So, anyways, enough for the Super Bowl. Today's topic actually is nothing related to what we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about. We're actually going to talk about Facebook, Google, and advertising. We spent last week talking about Amazon techniques and things like that, and I thought
the week
before, right? Yeah, last week was mostly GameStop. But this week, this is another question that I got at least 3 times this week as far as advertising on Facebook, and what is the best approach to start a campaign or to get started when you don't have an ongoing campaign and all that stuff, and you go through these things all the time. You deal more with campaigns yourself, but basically the point is that when you do any advertising online, specifically digital marketing like Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, and things like that, you need to be fully committed. You cannot be like half effort or half budget or half time or see if it works or test it. All those things will never work. You cannot enter this race that is ultra competitive right now by giving it like a 50% effort. It's the same thing with any other race. You cannot go to whatever Olympics saying I'm gonna try, or a car race saying, oh, I'm gonna put this thing together and see how it does. No, either you go full effort and you test it with real racing or real testing conditions, or you're better off not going because you're throwing your money away. So when it comes to Facebook and Google, this is actually extremely important that you plan your campaign with a long-term plan, and you can test different things, but you cannot test with a handicap from the beginning. So let's start with Facebook, for example. And I'm gonna hand this off to you because you like I said, you deal with this more on a daily basis. But what is the number one, not number one, but the number one question, I guess, that you get all the time from customers as far as when they want to start campaigns, or what is the number one or the first handicap that you see with their idea of starting advertising on social media in general?
It's always budget and content. People always underestimate both, basically. The budget is very simple. You need to have, like for Facebook, they have what's called their like learning windows, and it's typically 7 days, and it's based on 50 conversions. So whatever your product is, say you have a product that sells for $100, well, you need to sell 50 of that in a week to get out of the learning phase. So that's $5,000 in that case. If you have a 2x ROAS, which is to start, which is pretty normal on a broad interest, you're going to need to spend at least $2,500 a week to get out of the learning phase, basically. And I think a lot of people, it depends honestly. Some people get it. Some people know, okay, yeah, I need to invest the right amount of money up front. But I think some people, and again, I blame honestly a lot of this on the stupid fucking gurus and fake bullshit that is out there. That they say, oh, spend $10 a day and turn it in. It's like, that is, I mean, maybe in 2015 that worked, but that doesn't work anymore. Not even in
2015. That worked in the beginning. Before Facebook realized, okay, we need to be serious about advertising and stop doing the transition the serious advertisers from the push to dispose to put $10 or whatever to actually set up a business manager account, set up an ad account, and start running your campaigns like Google Ads did, or AdWords back then, from the very beginning. So, but
and then also content. People always underestimate the amount of content you need because, first of all, it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, you don't always know what content's gonna work. A lot of times, something you think that's gonna hit it out of the park totally fails, and then the thing that you kind of just threw together all of a sudden does amazing, right? So it's really hard to guess what content's gonna work, but you have to kind of assume 2/3 of all the content you put in your ads is probably not gonna work, and so. But then the 1/3 that does work, a lot of times it works for a time, and then it gets saturated, and then it stops working. Like some content, it's funny. Like, you might have a piece of content where it works at a certain budget. Like, say you have a certain ad, or a few variations of a certain type of ad, and you're spending whatever $100 a day, and it's working really well. But then you're like, okay, so this is working. Let's try to scale it up. But then as you scale it up, it just drops off.
Right.
Some pieces of content will scale up. I've seen some pieces of content where people literally spend over $1 million advertising that one piece of content, and it scales all the way. And I've seen others where you go from 100 a day to 200 a day, and immediately it just drops off. So these things are very hard. You can't predict it. I mean, you can try, but you can't predict it. So the answer is to always have more content and to always be refreshing your content. I would say that for every, it depends on your budget, obviously, but I would say for every $1,000 you spend, you should have at least 5 to 10 pieces of content.
Right, and there's one concept that we know very well that is called ad fatigue, or advertising fatigue, whatever, which is when you show the same ad over and over and over to the same people, to your audience, your selected audience. Some people just get tired of seeing that ad, and it happens on TV too. When you see the same commercial like over and over, finally you almost develop this kind of resistance to that particular brand because they have the same ad forever 20 times in between a football game or a movie or whatever, and you're tired of watching the same ad, So, and the same thing happens on internet marketing, where you have social media, whatever, you're scrolling up on Instagram, you see the same ad. What advertisers are realizing now is that even if you're advertising the same product or the same service, you need to have a variety of ads that are rotating, so the person sees the same message with different visuals, so they don't get this kind of fatigue and negative feeling about your brand, basically. But I wanted to get back a little bit to the learning phase, because I think that's the critical part that a lot of people just don't know. Basically, I don't think that it's not about not understanding; it's that not knowing how that works. And if we backtrack a little bit to when advertising started on Facebook and Google and all that stuff, it was basically, this is pre AI algorithms and all that stuff. You basically put your ad, and then it was more of a shotgun. You show it to everybody and all that, and see, what sticks or what doesn't stick. Kind of like a billboard effect. You put it on the freeway and just show it to traffic. When you started targeting advertising much more, then you start selecting your audience much more carefully of who you're going to present that ad to, which is what we can do now very, very accurately with either of the platforms. But the learning phase is critical, because it's one of those catch-22 situations where, like you said, Facebook has a 7-day, a 50 event learning phase. The event meaning whatever event you select for your campaign, whether it's conversions, downloads, click-throughs, whatever. Normally for us it's conversions, which means either you buy or you book or do something. But that's within your conversion window, which by default is 7 days. So you need to reach 50 conversions, let's just say, in a 7-day window, which in turn, I mean, if you don't invest enough money for your first week, then you're never...
And by the way, that's per ad set.
Exactly. Per ad set. Exactly.
So if you have 5 ad sets,
right?
Basically, like say you're running, if you're just starting out, right? You have like super basic. Say you just have 2 campaigns with 2 ad sets in each, and you have 4 ad sets. Well, those each need 50 conversions, so you need to get 200 conversions. Mm-hmm. So if like I said, your average price is $100. Right. Well, then you need 200 conversions, which is $20,000. At a 2x ROAS, that means you need to be spending $10,000 a week.
And an ad set is for Facebook is the equivalent of the ad group for Google Ads. So, but back to that. So you have 7 days to create for a single ad set, 50 conversions. And if you start with little money, you're never going to get there, because what happens is that your ads, either they stop running because you run out of budget through the day. Let's say that you put only $1,000 a month, and you basically divide that to about $32 a day. Okay, you're in the learning phase, you're actually paying more. I mean, it's publicly known that during the learning phase, Facebook is also learning. That's what it's called, learning phase. It's because their own algorithm is learning which audience will be more receptive to those ads. So they're also doing this kind of shotgun thing where they start showing the ads a lot and seeing which one performs better. So which for the advertiser, it means, hey, you're spending more money and your conversion rate is lower. So basically you're paying more for the normal ad that you will pay once the campaign is fine-tuned down the road. So when you factor in the fact that you're paying more for the advertising in the first, a few days or a few weeks, and then you have your budget runs out, your ads are not showing, therefore you have fewer impressions, conversions, and everything, then you never get to those 50 events or 50 conversions in our case. Therefore, and that's actually without making any changes. If you realize 3 days into the campaign that you say, oh, I need to make this change, or I need to make a significant change that Facebook is very vague about what that means, then you start from zero again. You start that count from zero. So we have clients that because they don't have enough budget, they never get out of the learning phase, which means that they are always paying more for less, which is the opposite that you want to do. You want to pay less for more, but they are actually paying more for each impression, for each conversion and everything, and getting less conversion rate because they are always in this learning phase where they never get out of it, and then Facebook says, okay, we know pretty much what you're selling, we know your audience, we think we have this thing pretty much figured out with our AI algorithms. Now we're gonna make your campaign, perform really well, and that's when you fine tune things. So that's the important thing with the face, with the face. So with the learning phase for Facebook now, Google has the same thing, and they have more of a time window. Google basically says more like 14 days, and they don't go by events like Facebook does. Google has a different, obviously, it's more intent-based campaign, so they go a little differently, but they also have their own learning phase, which means that you need to give the campaigns a little more time to grow, to develop, to establish the foundation, and everything. So that's the thing that I think is the biggest challenge for advertisers. Understanding that, like the other day, this week I got two or three requests from clients saying, hey, can we run this quick campaign for like 3-4 weeks? And I'm like, first of all, we don't do that. We don't run campaigns for 3 or 4 weeks for clients that don't have already established thing. Now, you have a campaign that is ongoing and it's already doing well. We already have everything for you, and you say, I want to promote this particular event or product for 2-3 weeks, for like Valentine's is coming or something. That's a whole different story. But when you have nothing, and then you want to create something that you want to do well for 2-3 weeks, it's like you're wasting your money. As far as doing it, that you're throwing money away, you're gonna get nothing. Yeah, you're gonna get impressions, very top of the funnel, whatever, but you're not gonna get any conversions. So if that's what you want, and you just want to spend a couple $1,000 in a month or something, and advertise this and get a lot of impressions that really give you no return, it's your money. But as an agency, we need to recommend the clients, if you have $2,000 only and you only have 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe there's another way that we can advertise this better. Maybe we can do email marketing. You have a good list with special offer to past clients. Maybe we can do something depending on the situation, But definitely social media today is not made for short campaigns,
No. I think, honestly, I think a lot of people are just completely throwing their money away on Facebook because they have no idea what they're doing.
Well, that's the thing. That's the challenge, and that's the whole purpose of this conversation, so that we can tell people, convince people out there and clients or anybody listening that that's the long-term commitment, and you cannot think of 1 month or 2 months and then it's like I mean, we like sports and everything. You can judge a league by the first 2 games. If it's a 80-game league or whatever, then you need to see how you're doing, and then you may take a mid-season or half-season assessment, or you can have an idea where you will improve, but you cannot judge by the first 2-3 games or just take a little thing in isolation. And when it comes to marketing, is really understanding how I can give you tons of analogies, but you don't become a master graduate in the first semester or in the first quarter. You need to basically keep learning, and you have a long-term commitment saying, I'm going to study this thing for 4 years and get my degree. So in a campaign, you need to allow the systems to learn, and not just the systems, also the agencies or yourself, whoever is running the campaign, to see what is doing better. And I keep saying that we day trade these campaigns. I mean, you spend every day, obviously, monitoring campaigns. I do the same thing at a different level.
Yeah, but actually, I mean, you do and you don't, because a lot of times the mistake people make too is
there's too many changes, right?
They're changing shit every day.
Yeah, I'm not saying
you can't do that.
No, I'm not saying making changes.
I mean, it depends. If you're spending, it depends on what you're spending. Yeah, if you're spending 10 grand a day, okay, yeah, you have plenty of data to see. We can make changes every day. But if you're not spending a lot, then don't make changes every day.
No, I'm not saying as far as making changes to the ads.
A rule of thumb I always give for anybody is when you're testing a new ad, for example, or a variation of a new ad, is you want to spend at least, the very, very, very minimum what a conversion is. So if your conversion value is $100, then spend at least $100 on that ad before you make a decision. Ideally, twice as much, because a lot of times, especially when you first launch an ad, again, because Facebook is learning, it's not going to convert well, and maybe you spend $100 and you get no conversions, but then by the time you spend $200, you got 3 conversions. So right. A good rule of thumb is spend double whatever your average order value is on that ad. And so the problem is, if you have say you're testing 5 new ads, right? And you should spend at least $100 to $200 on each ad before you make a judgment. But then you spend $50 on each, and you're all of a sudden like, oh, I don't have conversions yet. I'm going to turn these off. I'm going to change them. You shouldn't do that because you're judging on too small of data. You don't know.
No, what I meant by day trading, I don't mean about making, like we said, we don't make radical changes to the ads, because then you basically, it's like for Facebook or Google, it's like creating a brand new ad, and then they start learning again. They basically put you under review and blah blah and all that stuff. So you delay the process basically. So what I'm talking is like you can monitor, for example, the ad spend or the budget that you put for that ad, and you see where the competitive rank is compared to similar ads, and you say, well, maybe I need to up my bid by 20% to be more competitive, so my ad is showing, but I'm going to make it more competitive, or things like that. So on the AdWords side, that is actually very common, that you just more supply and demand, just like stock market. And then sometimes you say, I'm going to increase the campaign minimum bid or top of the page or whatever, just basically the competitive rank. And then because you have with Google, you have basically you can compare by rank by the page value. Basically is your landing page is how much it counts, how much is valuable for Google, or just basically how you compare to similar ads that are promoting similar offers. So you can increase your bid to be more competitive, and that's what you do. You cannot trade and say, okay, it's worth it for me to put more money into the campaign, maybe for a week or something. But the ads themselves, you want to leave alone for a while, like you said, so you don't make any significant changes. But so practically speaking, if you have which you do, you have a client that is saying, okay, well, I have a new product, and we see this every day. I have a new store that I just launched. I have a new product, and now I'm ready to start doing marketing. Let's just say, I know we do marketing on Amazon and other stuff, but let's just say that we're going to do marketing on Facebook. What would be the recommendation for this client as far as how much to spend, for how long the commitment, or how do you explain to clients, what their commitment should be or what the spend should be for a new campaign?
It depends. I mean, it depends on so many things. Is Facebook the only marketing they're doing? Do they have other marketing channels? Do they have, what are their expectations? Is their goal to grow massively and they don't care about losing money in the beginning? Or are they totally bootstrapped and no, we need to be like at least break even or profitable from day one? I mean, there's a lot of different factors.
Well, you just mentioned one thing. If you are bootstrapped, meaning you're just spending as little as possible to keep...
Bootstrap doesn't mean spend as little as possible. Bootstrap just means you really need to maximize each dollar, right? So some companies have a lot of money, whether they raise money, whatever, and they say, we don't care, we'll lose money. We just want to grow quickly. We want to grow revenues, even if it means we're losing on the profit side, right? Obviously, if you're bootstrapped and you don't have a ton of money in the bank, then you say, okay, we're okay growing slower if that means we're profitable from day one, right? Or at least profitable from within a few months, right? So,
all right, let me give a more specific question. So if a client says, I've allocated $5,000 to marketing, which is a small client, or whatever they sell, I've allocated $5,000 a month to advertising spend, and they say, I don't know what's best for me. Let's say that, they can say, you guys decide what to do, if it's Google Ads or Facebook.
Depends on
or
the
something.
product.
Right.
$5,000 a month, you can do Facebook for $5,000 a month. It's just that you need to be doing a lot on the organic side too. If you're spending $5,000 a month, and you need to
organic on Facebook, or organic as far as search engine?
No, organic like Instagram, Facebook, website content, like the whole thing basically. Trying to maximize your non-paid spend, because you either have time or money basically.
Right.
So if you don't have money, you better be spending your time trying to maximize other channels, and then also, if you have $5,000 a month, you better be maximizing the hell out of your email marketing, potentially SMS marketing, all the other things that are based on the retention or they're getting repeat customers, things like that, because that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And especially if you're on a limited budget, that's what's going to do best. But yeah, I mean, $5,000 a month is enough where you can test to see, like, if you have a new product and a new brand, where you can get an idea of, is this going to work? Is this going to get traction? Now, $5,000 a month isn't going to turn you into $1 million brand, but
No,
it's going to get you.
But
It's going to be enough to where you can say, is there potentially demand for this product and this brand?
like for me, for a small client, like, I'm not talking the major advertisers and major campaigns and all that stuff, but the small client that we deal with a lot, that the company that, or individual that started like a store, or Shopify or whatever, and then they want to start advertising and selling their products, and they say, okay, I can put together maybe $5,000 a month or something. I actually tell them, let's try, like you said, depending on what they're selling. Let's say that they sell something that is a good product to sell or to promote on Facebook and Instagram, basically social media versus search engines. So I don't want to split the campaign. Like they say, oh, well, maybe we can put 2,000 into Google and 2,000 is like, okay, you're basically spreading
No,
the
we would
thing.
not do that.
Exactly. It's like, it's better to put more effort into, if your product is a product that is more suitable or suited to be promoted via social media, then let's put all the money there. Let's run a proper campaign for a long term. Maybe it's at least 69 days that we can do some good testing with that money.
And I was,
there,
like I said,
versus splitting the budget and saying, oh, we're gonna put $2,000 on AdWords.
when you have
and all that.
limited budget, you need to make sure, because the last thing you want is to spend a bunch of money on Facebook, but then your website's shit.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
and it's not converting.
Right.
Or maybe you have a good website, but you're not maximizing on your email marketing. You're not maximizing, like, all those things that you have much more control over that are much cheaper. You should maximize, right? So anything that is like, because the thing with Facebook is, yeah, it can be a money pit. Now, it can be a good money pit, as in it's basically multiplying, right? If you're getting if every dollar you put into Facebook, you get 3 or 4, that's awesome. But in the beginning, it takes time to build up, and it's going to take time, especially when you have a new brand and a new product with no traction. So you have no idea, because the problem is too, when you have a new brand and product, you don't always even know who the customer is. Like, you can you try to guess who the customer is, but a lot of times, I mean, I run ads all the time. It's like, I'm like shocked who the customer for a certain product is, right? I mean, it'll be a product where it's like male focused, but then half the customers are women buying it maybe for a man or something, and you wouldn't necessarily expect that. Things like that. So you don't always know who the customer is.
Right.
And so the problem is when you have that limited budget in the beginning, it's like, basically, it's like you need 100,000 pieces of data, and you're starting from zero, and you need to build up all that data, and you have none of it. And so you're spending money to gather that data. But what you can maximize is your website, your email marketing, your customer service, all the other little things that make a big difference. And then when you do those things, and obviously the product itself, the brand itself needs to be high quality. When you maximize all those things, first of all, hopefully you'll get more organic sales, word of mouth, people sharing you. And then if you do more organic content, that will help too. And that's free. That's your time, but that's free. This is what you have to do if you're on a limited budget. I mean, if you're on a limited budget, you have to do everything you can to maximize the things that don't cost you money, or at least are very cheap. Email marketing is pretty cheap for what it is.
Yeah, cost per unit on email marketing is the most cost effective. Right. Obviously, it pretty much costs the same money. Whether
you can set up a Klaviyo account for free, set up your email marketing, and then they only charge you based on the emails you have. So when you start out, it's very cheap, and then it only gets more expensive the more customers.
And
you
it's
have,
the same cost whether you send it to 500 or 5,000 or whatever.
Well,
so
it increases, but
but
when you have 5,000 customers in your database, that's obviously it's good, because that means you have 5,000 customers.
Right.
Basically.
No, but I'm saying that, like, for example, with Constant Contact, you pay by the number of people in your database, but you don't pay per email sent.
No. Yeah.
So you can send 10 emails a month to your 50,000 people in your database, and you don't pay any more than you send one email. So at the end of the day, at the end of the month.
Right, but I'm saying comparatively, I forget Klaviyo's pricing, but it's like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
You pay by the size of the database.
you pay like $100 a month or whatever for a few thousand people, whereas on Facebook you need to spend at least like a few grand a month,
Yeah,
right?
right,
So
right.
it's just much cheaper.
Yeah, email marketing is the most cost effective. Is the form of, I mean, obviously that's a whole conversation about email marketing, because you cannot just basically just send it to everybody. You need to segment your list and everything.
So the message is basically, yeah, if you have limited budget, you gotta hustle, because you can't. It's like if I'm like trying to start a car company, and I'm competing with these car companies who have $100 million ad budgets, and I don't have that. But then I try to compete with them with commercials.
Right.
That's not the way to do it. Like
Right.
the way Tesla was able to compete with Mercedes when Tesla doesn't spend a dime on ads isn't by making fucking commercials. You know,
Right.
they did other things. And so you have to do other things, right? If you can't expect to compete with the brand that's spending $1 million a month on Facebook ads when your budget is $5,000 a month. It's never going to
No,
happen.
it's not a competitive. It's not.
So you have to
uneven.
hustle and find your own
But
thing.
this is one thing that I think smaller companies are working with agencies that are more on top of their advertising versus the major agencies that is more of a set it, because they have such a huge budget. They say, okay, we're going to put this campaign with this much money, basically all over the place, 24/7, and let it run, and it's going to spend $1 million a month, like you said. And there's tons of those, whether you go to YouTube, Google Ads, Facebook, or whatever. But at the same time, those campaigns are wasting a lot of money. Now, with the bigger advertisers, they think that's part of the expenses, you know.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you have budgets that big, it's
Right.
it's hard. You can't. It's more about just basically building the brand,
Right.
than it is like direct conversions.
Exactly.
When you have budgets that
Exactly.
big.
You have more branding versus selling on top of the funnel
Right.
versus
When you're
impressions and so forth.
spending $1 million a month,
Exactly.
and you can afford that.
And that's my point.
You're
Like
just
with-
building the brand. When you're spending $5,000, you're like, no. I need sales from this $5,000.
Right. And with a smaller budget, these are things that we actually do, and I recommend always to do to clients. First of all, I always ask him, let's start with 2 or 3 major metro areas. We're not going to start doing this campaign nationwide. Let's just focus.
Not for Facebook though.
No,
It depends. It depends what the product is.
yes.
So, but for Facebook, no, actually, the funny thing, especially the last year, one of the interesting things with Facebook, some of the best performing campaigns are literally, I don't put any interests. I just put men aged 20 to 50 and let the ads run. And that's it. And a lot of times, those will work better than when I try to do specific interests based on the products. Because Facebook's algorithm has gotten really, really good.
No,
so
but
that broad
geographically-
interest targeting.
No,
but
I
I'll do
understand.
all across the U.S. I'm not going to do like.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, if you have a limited budget, and I agree with that. I mean, when you start a campaign, you say, I'm going to start pretty broad and say, okay, I'm going to have not just men. I can say men and women.
Yeah, or sometimes I don't even
from
do
30
gender. Sometimes I literally would just do like.
well, I don't know. I mean,
No, it depends on the product, but it's like sometimes I'll literally do like 20 to 60 and just let it run. And that's the only, and it works better than an ad that I try to hyper target the interest.
But to me, there's other factors. For example, if I have a new e-commerce client that is not used to, again, like we discussed, they just launched a store or something, and they're not used to having this kind of volume, and they don't want to be completely overwhelmed and shipping far or whatever. So if they live in a major city, let's say that we launch a store for a company that is in our city, in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale, Tempe, Phoenix, and so forth. And you can start a campaign that says, okay, you feel comfortable shipping to Phoenix. If you get tomorrow 100 orders, you're not going to be completely overwhelmed. Your first impression is the most important one when it comes to a new product and a new order. So if you don't deliver on time, the customer's going to be pissed off, because right now you're competing with the Amazons of the world, which is only one, by the way, that delivers the same day sometimes, especially here in Phoenix. So if you get an order from a client or prospective or new client, and you don't deliver that in the 2 days or 1 day or whatever window you promised because you internally were overwhelmed with the fulfillment process, then that's a customer you probably have lost right at first purchase. So looking at that part, I say...
but that's, you just have to set
no, I'm talking.
expectations.
No, it's a real issue for smaller businesses.
Yeah, of course,
When they
but you have
start-
to set expectations. But that isn't really geographic. I mean,
Well,
shipping,
No, I mean it is a fact. I know because when you start shipping to other places, you have the window narrows quickly. Then you have more factors. You have to do the shippers and all that stuff. When you ship in your geo area and your geographic area, sometimes you have like you can deliver yourself. You can do. I mean, a lot of people do that stuff. You have local delivery, local pickups. You have a lot of options that you don't have. You're shipping a product from Phoenix to New York, and then you have a lot of kind of delays or things or tracking some things that you need to put into your shipping thing. So, and especially the budget. I mean, just geographically for me, if you have whatever is whether you go by CPMs or by click-through rates or by cost per conversion or whatever, and you have, let's say, $5,000, let's say that you have, almost $100 a day in advertising, or 150 or something like that. And then you spend those 150 in a certain metro area with 5-6 million people potentially be in your market, you're going to learn
That's
much
the thing.
faster.
When you have a new product, you don't know who your market is. That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times you have no idea who your market is. So the best way to do it is actually to go broad, and then Facebook will tell you, because then you can go in the analytics and see who's buying your products. And maybe fucking men in Wisconsin is actually like your best market, and then you can be more hyper targeted. But I'm telling you, it's trust the algorithm. The algorithm is smarter than you. It's like an ego thing where before I would always think I'm better than the algorithm. No, trust me. I don't care how smart you are. Facebook's algorithm is smarter than you.
I of course, I know the algorithm is smarter than us and than any person. That's why they are artificial intelligence. But I'm telling you, obviously, maybe you have a product in mind. I have a different product in mind. We're discussing this. But
Give me a product.
Okay.
I mean,
a food product, for example. And this is something that is a real example. I mean, we're setting up a campaign in, this is not even in our country, it's in Spain for this case.
Different if you have a food product where they're trying to be local. But if you have a generic food product, like a snack product, I advertise that nationally. I have snack products and I advertise them nationally. I don't advertise them in certain geographic areas.
No, you expand, but you start from the beginning nationally?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that myself.
Yeah, you don't run Facebook ads.
No. I've run Facebook ads, but many times. But
I run the Facebook ads for most of our
David,
company.
but let me ask you, if you have a sample, a major metro area with like 10 million people, it's a pretty good sampling. If you are in LA and you advertise something in LA that is a food product that persons in LA will buy just as much as people in New York, and you start advertising to, let's say, combined 60 million people between New York and LA versus 20 or whatever only, your ad cost is going to basically be what we said before, that you run out of budget before you get out of the learning phase, just because.
But that doesn't matter whether you're targeting
so much. No.
just LA or the whole thing.
No.
It's based on conversions. It has nothing to do with geographic area.
Yes, well, it has to do with how many people are clicking on your ads, and your conversion. Clicking on your ads is costing you money, which is
right. But running ads just for people in one city versus running ads again, if it's a product that's targeted for people in a certain area, fine.
No,
but if it's more of a general market product, then why would you limit it?
I will limit it so I can run the ads longer. Okay.
But you can't run the ads longer. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay. If Facebook is costing me,
Facebook goes by CPM, so they don't give a fuck if you're advertising nationally or to one city. It's just CPM.
But exactly.
That's
CPM is cost per mil. Okay. That's per 1,000 impressions. Okay. So if I target the entire United States, just to give you an example, 350 million, 330 million people, or whatever people are on Facebook. Okay, I'm going to run through my impressions this fast. Okay. Which means that my ads with my daily budget, if it's $100 or whatever money I have, are going to stop running by noon. And that happens everywhere. I don't care if it's AdWords or whatever. If I have a
no, but that's gonna happen.
David, it's pure math. Okay.
No, it's not.
If I go and I start throwing these things,
if you have you're talking like.
I'm talking a limited budget. I'm talking.
Yeah, exactly. So
right.
If you're targeting 30 million people or 200 million people. Doesn't matter. You're gonna run through your budget anyways.
No.
Facebook's gonna spend your money, dude. Trust me. They're not gonna. They're gonna
David,
spend
but
your
that's
money.
what we're trying to discern. That's the thing that I wanted to coordinate with you, because if I only have a client that has $150 a day, and that's a big stretch for them, and they say, okay, well, $150 a day, $50 a day, and let's say my click through my cost per conversion with Facebook does. Okay, they have that cost, and right now we're about 25 or something for conversion rates. Okay, so I'm gonna have maybe at 150, I'm gonna have maybe 100 conversions. Okay, which means that 100 conversions, I need to have X amount of impressions to get the click-through rate, and then get to that maybe 1-2% conversion rate or whatever the conversion rate is. So if I start using these impressions and all the funnel with a huge funnel, I'm gonna run out of budget by noon, and we see that every day. I don't care if it's Facebook or Google Ads or whatever.
But you're gonna run out
because
of
even
budget,
Google,
but you're gonna run out of budget whether you
no,
do it in a
not if
local
I'm
area
targeting an audience that is
or a larger area.
no, not if I'm targeting an audience that is 6 million people versus 60 million people. I'm gonna be able to bombard
But
those.
how do you know that 6 million people
well,
are the best people?
Well, because
you don't.
No, because I'm starting with a pretty good demographic sampling of a metro area. I'm not starting in a village. I'm starting in a major metro area like in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, whatever. You have people that are pretty much from all over the nation. They come here from all over, snowbirds, whatever. And then we have a pretty much all demographic, all income levels, men, women, kids, whatever.
If your goal is to build your brand in the Phoenix area first, and then you want to expand or whatever, and that's your strategy is to be more geographic, fine, you can do that.
No, my strategy is
but that's just one strategy, is what I'm saying.
No, well, I don't agree. I mean, maybe you have a different product in mind too, and that's what we're not disagreeing.
I'm talking mass market products. So anything that's like basically a large percentage of the population may be interested in this product.
Okay, well, I'll tell you that
not a niche product.
No,
basically.
but it could be.
So if I had like for example like a surfing product, okay, then I'm gonna target
yeah,
people.
You're gonna sell it to fucking people in Nebraska.
Right. But even then, maybe I still do, but I just only target people who are interested in the product and who go on vacation a lot to Florida or whatever, go surfing. Right. But so yeah, if I have a more niche product, then I'll do more geographic. But like I said, you say food product. If I have like a snack type product, people eat snacks whether they're in Phoenix or Colorado or New York, wherever the fuck. So I'm gonna advertise broad, and then I'm gonna let the algorithm do its thing, and then I can look at the analytics in the algorithm, and then I can build audiences based off of that.
Okay, so let me go back to a learning phase. So we just discussed that one of the issues with the budget is that you run out of the learning phase so quickly that you never pass the learning phase, because you need to have 50 events or whatever in a week and all that stuff, whatever your events are. So when you show the product, if I have an audience of 100 people and I say this and I have a personal thing and I tell them, and the person comes to my store, let's just go a little small, and I can sell them something.
Okay, hold on. You have a store?
No. I'm just giving you an analogy. Okay.
Yeah, if you have retail stores,
I don't have a store.
Total different strategy.
No. Forget that I said the retail store. I'm saying that I'm comparing the traditional retail store selling with the online selling. Okay. People never buy, and the numbers are there, the first time they see an ad. There's like multiple touch points before they buy something. Okay. And they even had to see the ad like 3, 4, 5, 10 times the average before they actually buy. Okay. Yeah. So you show it to all these people, and you basically have a CPM, as you said, you have a click-through rate, you have a conversion rate. I can pull you the numbers because I have it right here and tell you that when Facebook is charging you now $1.25 average, okay, depending on your category and all that stuff. But let's just say that it's $1.25, $1.30 per conversion, which means in your case you're selling something. Okay, and you spend $150 a day, which is the client that has $4,500, $5,000 a month.
$1.30 a conversion. How much is the cost of the product?
It doesn't matter. I'm just basically, I'm whatever is, you say a snack. A snack could be $4 or $5 for a pack of this, or it could be a gourmet product that costs $20. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that the conversion rate is $1.25. The cost per conversion. Okay.
No, not conversion rate, not conversion cost.
No. The click on the Facebook cost, not your cost per conversion. Your cost per conversion could be depending on how many you sell. Depending on your advertising. But what I'm saying is that is very logical math when you try to advertise to so many people and you have many more impressions, 300 million impressions potentially versus 3 million. Obviously, you're going to run out of the budget that you have per day much faster than you're going to run if you limit the geographic area. I mean, that's just logical stuff, right?
No,
you just say CPM.
No, actually, it's the opposite, because your CPM is going to be more expensive. The more you limit who you can advertise to, the more expensive the CPM gets. So when I do very targeted campaigns, a lot of times on Facebook, I'll get a $40 CPM.
No,
if I do
but the
broad,
CPM
I'll get a 15.
No, the CPM doesn't change if you target basically everybody in a geographic
does.
area. No, it doesn't that much.
Yes, it
I mean, you
does.
can see when you see the thing.
Dude, yes, it does.
Okay, well, I don't know. With Google, it doesn't.
Certain geographic
change.
areas, if I want to target Manhattan, that is more expensive than other geographic areas. I mean, I can tell you that right now because people in Manhattan have more money.
No, but that's well, I understand that you're basically targeting one city, but by that logic, why advertising something in Manhattan when you want to start advertising in Phoenix? Why add that expensive
No,
CPM?
I'm giving you an example.
Well, I know. I'll give you
say you're
the
based
same,
say you're based out of New York instead of Phoenix, and you say, okay, I'm just going to advertise in Manhattan. That's more expensive.
Okay, if that's your market, that's your market. But if you what I'm saying is you select a test market, whichever is a good representative market. Maybe you're in New York and you say my product, I want to test it in Los Angeles first. Or maybe you're in Phoenix and you say I want to test it in Los Angeles or in Phoenix metro area first. But like you said, why spend more CPM advertising something in Manhattan that is going to skew your results worse because it's not Manhattan doesn't represent the country versus advertising something that is a product for the masses in a city that is more anytown USA that you can advertise and get a pretty good advertising. It's basically it's like a focus group. What do you say? It's the same thing that you do with a focus group, but you do a focus group in advertising.
You're just limiting yourself. You
Well,
don't know.
okay.
Maybe in a certain city they don't care about a certain
But
thing.
David, we started with
But-
the premise that you have a limited budget.
But
Again,
the budget's gonna. If you have a limited budget, if you're advertising to 10 million people or 100 million people, it's gonna spend your budget either way.
Okay, so let me-
it's about the conversions.
of
That's what you
course,
care about.
I understand.
And
But
so you don't know who's gonna want your product more or not. So that's what I'm saying. When you have no idea, when you're starting out with a brand new product or brand, the best strategy is actually to go broad and then look at what the data tells you. Don't try to outsmart the algorithm. That's what I'm saying.
no, I'm not trying to smart the algorithm, but I'm also not trying to pay for money that is basically throwing flyers in the middle of nowhere.
You're not
I
throwing
mean, really,
flyers in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, that's what you're doing. You're showering. It's like you have a plane throwing leaflets,
Dude,
like they used to
people
do
buy
in World War II.
products everywhere in the
Yes,
country.
they do, David. But if you don't limit geographically and you say I'm going to spend just as much showing to a person in Kingman, Arizona, as Scottsdale, that's to me that's a whole
First of
different
all-
geographic.
First of all, you don't. First of all, CPMs vary. But then second of all, you have no idea. Maybe the person in the middle of nowhere converts 3 times as often as the person in the city. So you have no idea.
Well, I have a pretty decent idea that if Tesla was going advertising and they can pinpoint it, they're not going to go to Kingman, Arizona, or Jerome to sell a Tesla versus going to Newport Beach.
Okay.
I mean, I understand
But also
that.
the algorithm knows that, right? So the Facebook, the reason why I say it's smarter than
not
you.
if you tell the algorithm I want this everywhere in the USA. They're
Yeah,
gonna-
but the
they're gonna use
algorithm
your
isn't
money.
going to give it to everybody.
Well,
in the beginning, it will, and then it's going to find who's actually interested. Okay.
Yes.
It's going to find who's actually interested.
But it's going to be serving the ads to people that are because you didn't limit the algorithm. It's like by that
But
thing.
you just advertising to a city. The majority of people in a city probably don't give a shit. You're just doing it at a higher level.
No, I understand, David. But okay, let me move on from this.
Let's
because-
move on from it. 'Cause
No.
We
because
disagree. Fine.
We definitely disagree. But the thing is, and this is something that I discuss all the time with actually other experts that do this for a living too, like people at WarStream and other stuff that we work with all the time. And when in situations where we have a limited campaign or limited budget from the client, we say, okay, well, how can we maximize the budget? Okay,
But that's on Google. That's different. Google's very different from Facebook.
No, it doesn't matter. But Facebook has the same things. Facebook copied Google to begin with. Facebook knew nothing about advertising compared to Google.
Yeah, but it's totally different because Google's based on intent.
Some of the
Facebook's
fundamentals
based on demand.
Okay, David, but some of the fundamentals are the same. Okay,
But a lot are not.
Okay, well,
search ads are very different than demand generation ads.
No, you have search ads. You have basically the same, display ads. You have a lot of things. So let me give you another example. One of the ways that we sometimes try to maximize the budget is try to find the best times of the day to serve those ads. Okay, so we can say it doesn't matter if you're serving the ad out to a person at 3 a.m. when that person at 3 a.m. is browsing the internet or whatever, and it's not going to buy anything. So we say, okay, we're not going to serve this particular ad anywhere that is after 10 p.m. and before 5 a.m. Okay, so we avoid impressions and fumble clicks or whatever from people that have insomnia that are there looking at something and then they click on an ad or something. That's one way that we decrease it. Another way is basically doing also like we'll limit the places where we put the ads, or we'll limit maybe the days of the week. If it's a product that people on a weekend will probably not be looking for and they look during the day, or maybe they prefer to look for that particular thing on weekends if it's some kind of leisure thing or whatever versus weekdays that they're at work. I mean, there's a lot of parameters and things that even Facebook tells you that you can do to maximize your ads and the efficiency of your ads, as opposed to say, like leaving stuff all the time of the day, So one of the things that the big advertisers do is they say, okay, we're going to put $1 million in ads. I'm going to shower the entire planet with this product, and then let's see what happens. That's fine. They have the money. But when you have limited money, like I said, it's like putting flyers on the parking lot in any person's windshield. You don't fucking know who
But
the fuck
that's
is.
not what you're doing.
Well, with their theory on Facebook, that's basically what you're doing.
No, you don't understand.
Do your algorithm.
This is the thing. It's the algorithm. So the algorithm knows what people like and don't like. Okay, so if you're advertising...
It knows just as much as you do in the beginning.
No, I'm telling you. Because it knows who likes what. So if you're selling a snack product, it's going to show that ad to other people on Facebook who have bought snack products before.
Yes.
Okay, because that person's much more likely to buy. Okay, so but it's going to show it to people all over the country, not just in one specific area.
In your experience, then the algorithm learns just as much by trying to sample 300 million people than trying to sample 3 million people.
Yeah, and it learns more. Yeah.
It learns more, but it takes more time at your expense.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, yes, necessarily. I mean, it's like
No.
if I tell you decipher this password that is 4 digits versus decipher this password that is 10 digits, yeah, you have an algorithm that might be able to do it, but it's going to take much longer when you have 10-digit combinations versus 4. 4, you have 10,000. 10, you have like trillions. But
you're artificially limiting yourself for no reason to some random geographic area that you have no idea if that's the best geographic area for you.
Oh, yes. Okay. Like I said, it depends on the particular product. If I'm advertising, like I said, food products, gourmet foods, which is exactly what we're doing now. And we're advertising gourmet food products for a particular audience that is more or less affluent. They have a certain income level, men or women, it doesn't matter, but they have to be maybe 30 plus because they're the ones who look into food that is more quality, whatever. And we can go to basically the entire country of Spain versus limited to a major city, which we're familiar with and all the stuff. Yeah, I'm going to start with a major city that has already like 4 million people versus going to a country with 60 million.
Yeah, but in that case, you're talking about a company that has a storefront in that city and offers local delivery, okay? And they're doing a strategy of trying to be one of the, I'm trying not to give details, but like basically a brand name within that city.
No.
And that's totally great. If you want to go with that strategy, that's totally great.
No,
but that, for a lot of e-commerce products, doesn't apply. Basically.
No, but it applies pretty good because with double the budget, we'll be able to go to 2 major cities, not just one. Okay, but if we have a limited budget, that limited budget could go a long way if you target a major metro area.
Let's move on. The answer is test shit. Okay, the truth is you have no idea what works with digital marketing. Nobody does. Okay, you have to test things. Okay, and the best way to do it is to let the algorithm work and then see what works and what doesn't. So then if you have basically if all of a sudden I'm running ads for a certain product and I see that people in Miami are buying at 3 times the conversion rate of other cities, okay, well then I'll set up a campaign just for Miami for whatever reason. Maybe it's a certain fishing product, and people in Miami love that product. I have no idea, right? So then you can do that. But I'm saying go broad, let the algorithm tell you what works, because it gives you very detailed analytics
let's just wrap
about
it up. I agree.
Age groups, geographies, interests, because it's not just geography, right? It'll tell you these age groups, the gender,
I understand, but
this interest group. Then you can target those people.
Let's just wrap it up for a second. So we started with the premise that a client has a limited budget. Let's just say that it was $5,000, and which basically comes to $160 a day or whatever for advertising. So in your opinion, you can spend $160 a day advertising to potentially 300. When you go your selection of audiences and people, all that stuff, and Facebook said, oh, you're targeting this and estimated these clicks and blah, blah, blah. And so with $160 a day, you can basically reach 300 million people every day for a month. And
right, but obviously in the
be pretty
beginning,
good.
it depends, because in the beginning you have no built up. Because obviously once you have more data, then you do retargeting advertising. You can do
No, I
lookalike.
understand. I'm just talking about
you
the start.
Expand.
Well, yeah. Once we have more data, we obviously apply what we learned to everything.
But for the
that was
first-
my philosophy.
for the
I rather target a smaller place
for
that
the
is a good
first couple
sample.
weeks, and for the first few weeks, you're just in data gathering mode, and you just need to get a bunch of data, and then you can look at the analytics, and then you can finally tune your
but you're
campaigns.
saying what you're saying is that you can be competitive as far as ranking, advertising, impressions, and everything with $150 a day, and be able to advertise your product or your whatever you're advertising to the entire country, basically to 300 million people.
Yeah, but
and
you're
be-
not advertising 300 million people.
Okay.
You're advertising to whatever your money's going to get you based on that CPM.
Well, I understand, but that's the thing.
So if you spend $150
So
a day at $15 CPM, you'll get 10,000 people, basically.
okay, right. Okay.
But those 10,000 people are spread out geographically.
Yeah. Okay. So which means that if you have the money, after you get those 10,000 people, your ads will stop showing up, stop displaying. You run out of daily budget.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
the same
CPM
with-
is for. Yeah. No, I understand. I understand. So in your with your theory, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. That's your technique. You could be like a coach, basically. You have your own playbook. But with your technique, you say that you prefer to reach 10,000 people worldwide. I mean, nationwide, and then even in your ads stop displaying 3 hours after the
Well,
beginning
that's
of the
not
day.
how Facebook works. Facebook spreads it out through the day. It's
Well,
not like Google
okay,
Ads, where Amazon does the same thing, right? Amazon will just go based on its cost per click, right? So then once you get a certain amount of clicks, you run out of budget.
Exactly.
Facebook doesn't do that. Facebook spreads it out
Well,
through
I
the
understand.
day. And
You can-
Facebook will advertise. So like, for example, if the algorithm notices that at 11 o'clock at night, people tend to buy your products more than other times of the day, it will spend more at that time at night. So
that
the
will be-
algorithm does that
But
stuff.
you're talking when they already know they're buying the product. Nobody's going to buy the product the first time they see an ad at 10 in the morning. They're going to see the product. They're going to have to see the ad 5-6 times repeatedly to buy something. So, I mean, you
Sometimes.
have experience with ads
Right,
and
that's why
everything that I see.
That's why you do retargeting, re-engagement campaigns.
That's down the road. Exactly. Yeah, that's down the road. But again, in the beginning, the first campaign, brand new client,
the first campaign, your
wants to
goal is we have
advertise.
no data. We need to get data. It's very simple.
Right. So then you spend your 10,000 people that are going to do the CPM, basically, that you said. You say, okay, I'm going to run the ads all over the country, and then they're going to be displaying, I mean, major cities or whatever, anywhere, and people are going to see the ad. If they see it once a day, and then it disappears until the day after, they will not be able to see it anymore because basically you don't have the budget for that. And you think that is better than if you target a 6 million people
Yes.
area that see the ad maybe 3-4 times. They see it in the morning, maybe they see it in the afternoon, then maybe at night they can click on it and
No,
all that
because
stuff.
they're not going to see it that many times either.
Well, you have fewer people seeing it, they're going to see it. All right, well, we'll leave it there, and we'll continue with this conversation later, but I wanted to kind of come back with a little more on the AdWords side. We'll take a quick break. All right, welcome back. David and I don't quite agree on how we run the Facebook campaigns. I think we agree.
What I wanted to finish, what I thought on the break, the point I was trying, that I didn't say, that to make it clear, the point of advertising on Facebook is not to spend $5,000 a month. The goal is to spend $50,000, $100,000 a month.
Well, yeah.
But you have to get there.
Right.
And how you get there is through scaling. And the art of scaling ads on Facebook is truly an art, and it's very difficult. And there's people who are very good at it who get paid a lot to do it, right? And how you do it is by going more broad and then refining and then making more content catered at specific audiences and going over time.
I agree 100% with that.
The goal is not to stay at $5,000 a month. The goal is to grow over time, but it takes time to get there. And the only way you're going to get there is by getting as much data as possible.
I understand, and I agree with that. But the premise that we had was basically a customer only has 5,000. So
Right.
I don't think.
But they have 5,000 because they
To
don't have
start
money
with,
now.
right? To
Right,
start with,
but then
obviously, everybody.
If you take that 5,000 and consistently turn it into 15 for them, then they can have more budget, and then they can say, okay, let's go to 10.
Sure, no,
and
I
then
understand.
20.
As the results come, the customers feel comfortable. You give them like a ROAS of 5, 6, 7 to 1. They're gonna
Well,
say,
that's insane.
okay, whatever.
At a high level, that's insane. You can do that with a smaller amount, but you're not going to spend 50 grand a month and get 5x ROAS.
No,
I mean,
well, it depends on the product. I mean, we got more than that in some cases. I mean, we've seen advertising.
not on 50 grand a month.
No, not on 50. Not on 50. Obviously, not on 50. But we had advertisers in the hospitality industry that were getting 10 to 1.
Yeah, I've done campaigns where we're spending 5 grand a month and gotten 5x.
Right.
But that
Well,
doesn't maintain.
there's a law of diminishing returns. We already know that. There's some saturation in the market where your market is limited, whether it's limited to 300 million or 30 million. At some point, your market already knows about you, so you can only grow so much. So I understand that. It's just, honestly, I mean, it's like a game plan. It's like a playbook. Maybe your playbook works well. I know I play with my playbook, and
the geographic works great too. It's just it's a different strategy. So if you're,
right, exactly.
So like in the case of that new client for us, where they actually have a storefront and they offer local deliveries, I agree. They should focus on that city, because then they can be one of the main gourmet food companies for that city, and then they can expand beyond that, right? And that makes sense in that case. But if you're just selling like a clothing product or more of a generic whatever, like, I mean, look at all these D2C companies that sell mattresses or glasses or clothes. These are like generic products that anybody in the country would buy, you know? And so in that case, going broad is the better approach. That's what I'm saying.
It's a different approach. I'm not sure. It depends on what better
nobody
or worse.
cares
Because
about,
I've also seen
nobody cares about being the mattress king of Phoenix. You know what I mean?
No. That's not
But
the
being
thing.
a food
It's the equivalent
vendor in
a more local campaign is the equivalent of a focus group. When you do a focus group, you try to get a sample of people that represent a variety of the population.
But
and companies do focus groups. Oh, hold on a second, let me finish. And you do a focus group where you say, okay, I'm going to have a sample of 20 people or whatever. When I test the product, get their feedback, and then we do a better.
right.
And
But
then
why
all the
do a
stuff.
focus group that's limited based on geography? You get a focus group that's based on the whole country.
Yes, but again, it's
That's a
because
better
of,
focus
but it's
group.
because of the cost, and I wanted to transition to this. For example,
But the cost is actually higher the more you refine. That's what I'm saying. On Facebook, the more you limit,
yes,
they actually charge you more.
Wow.
So on certain ads where they'll charge me $40, $50 CPMs on certain audience groups. Whereas if I go super broad, it might be $12.
Right,
you
but
know?
at the
So
same time,
if
again,
you're limiting,
well, that's the discussion that we had before. It's like, yeah, if I say I want to leave this flyer for investment advice to everybody in a parking lot at a shopping mall, they're gonna say, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. Now, if I want to get a flyer in person to peers of people with this income that are coming out of this healthy, wealthy restaurant, and they are all investors, whatever, then maybe they're gonna say, no, we're gonna charge you more, of course, because you are targeting your audience, into a more narrow audience. But let's move on from that, because I wanted just to compare rates between the two major advertisers or advertising platforms, which is Google and on Facebook, obviously. So the CPM, we're talking about the CPM, and this is just for informational purposes, because that's also the buying power, which is another thing that we're discussing sometimes. Like, the budget needs to adjust. It's no different than inflation for us, or going to a grocery store. You go to a grocery store with $100 maybe 2 years ago, and you could buy a number of things. And today you say, shoot, this $200 or $100, I cannot buy as much as you used to. So with Facebook, for example, back in January, this is January 2020, this is pre-pandemic, okay, exactly a year ago, the CPM, or cost per 1,000 impressions, was $8.59. Okay, that's the average. It went up to $9.97, about $1 in February. Then the pandemic started but that's when it was declared a pandemic in March of 2020.
keep in mind though that CPMs vary by month. So January is just normally
Right.
a low month.
No, obviously there's fluctuations
Right,
depending
like
on
November,
the
December is
advertisers.
much higher.
Right, obviously, yeah, understood. So, but the point is that the CPM in March went down to 790 when everybody panicked, and we know that because everybody pulled out the advertising until the water sell, and they realized, okay, we're going to spend the money. And then when buying online became the norm, or more, grew over going to retail stores, for one, because they were closed and people were confined, then Facebook realized, okay, we're having much more advertising now from stores or people that normally wouldn't advertise on Facebook. So the trend after March went from 7.90 in March, and I'm not going to go month by month, but just for perspective, it went from $7.90 CPM in March to December 2020, which is basically now 2 months ago, $16.27. So that's 120% increase in the CPM. So what that translates to is that if you had a budget of X amount of money per month on your Facebook advertising campaign and you were going for impressions, let's say that you don't even care about conversions or whatever, you just want to put your ad there to advertise your brand. We're brand new, we do this and whatever. Now your impressions will be about less than half what we used to getting back in March for the same money. So that's just the acquisition or the power of the buying power that your ads will have, as time goes by. And that's one thing that also we relate to our clients, saying, your budget being fixed when the cost of goods, in this case impressions, is not fixed, your acquisition will be decreasing, because obviously impressions translate into click-throughs and click-throughs translate into conversions. So with fewer impressions, then things will just kind of taper down, exponentially, as you go down. By comparison, that's CPM for Facebook. Now, the cost per click on Facebook is, as of now, is about 120. Okay, so that's basically when people know the impression, which is just showing the ad. The click is when people actually do click on the ad. That's how much is the average for Facebook. Right now is 121. And again, just for perspective, it was 72 cents in March. So it's increased not as much, above 50% or so. Now, moving on to Google, okay? And this is where we also have the sometimes where you put your money, basically what is best, and obviously it depends on the product. But Google, the cost per click average for all industries, and Google has a little more of a separation depending on the industry, but for all industries across the board, the cost per click was $2.69. So that's actually more than twice what is for Facebook.
But that makes sense.
Huh?
But it makes sense because Google is intent based.
Right, exactly.
So somebody's literally saying,
Clicks,
I want this.
Exactly.
With Facebook, you're just putting stuff in front of people's faces.
Right, and it's more of a, exactly. Google searches are more intent based versus Facebook and social media is usually more interest based. When people click on social media, they click to see what's going on, whatever, but it's not necessarily that they're searching for something. It's more of a curiosity theme more than actually I'm searching for apartments in San Diego or something, and then you are searching proactively and then you click, so you pay more. So but that's part of the type of advertising you do. So for perspective, obviously the most expensive rate, again, that's the cost per click for search. When it comes to display for Google, is way cheaper. It's like only 63 cents. So that's the banner advertising. Google banner advertising is more of a branding effort. So some people click on the ads or something, but they.
Problem with that too is so many people have ad blockers.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's more of a billboard effect. It's almost like you drive on the freeway, you see a billboard. There's nothing you can do. You maybe cause an impression, but it's not. That's why the cost for those is much more or much lower. But it's interesting that for Google, we said the average cost per click for all industries across the board is $2.69, but you have rates that are as high as 6.40. Okay, $6.40 for consumer services, and then you have other rates that are much lower, like $1.16 for e-commerce, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Advocacy.
Well, it's what people are willing to bid.
Right.
So if I'm consumer services is like if you're a plumber, or
right,
whatever, and I'm willing to bid $6 because if you're searching for plumbing on Google, that means you probably have something that needs to be fixed right now.
Right.
And if I'm a plumber and I'm gonna make $1,000 on a job, I'll spend $6 on that click. If you're an e-commerce product selling for $30, you obviously can't spend that.
Exactly. So and in an industry
like
where
another one that's really high, I think, is like law services.
Yeah, services.
$7 a click.
Legal is almost $76, $75, and there's keywords there like.
But fuck, they get one client, they put you on retainer, they make so much money, they don't care.
Exactly. And one industry that we're very familiar with, like travel and hospitality, is pretty much less than average. It's 150, 153. That was 2020 numbers. 153 for.
Yeah, well, I think 2020 numbers are probably skewed.
Exactly. It's just not, normally it's higher, but obviously people were not searching for travel in 2020 because nobody could go anywhere. So that number, usually travel and hospitality is kind of average. Like it'll be more like 260, 270 as we start
For me,
going.
the thing with Google ads or search ads, they're great, but they're just limited because you're just limited to the amount of people that are searching for whatever. And there's no differentiating factor. You're just one of 4 links on a page that are paid, and you're just trying to have good copy so people click on it. But you don't have, there's no branding on a Google search term. There's no, and you're just competing so that even if you find, the problem is even if you find an arbitrage a lot of times, or maybe some long tail keyword is cheaper, a lot of times people will find that and then they bid it up and it's not cheap anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's fine. It's good because if listen, again, it's about the return. So if you can generate a 4x return on your Google search ads, do it. Hey, all day long, I'll turn $1 into 4 all day long. But it gets hard because the market adjusts, and if there's an arbitrage, other people are going to find that arbitrage too.
And the other factor is
and
that
it's limited on the upside.
with Google, it depends on what you're looking for. Like if you're selling products, we said last week or 2 weeks ago that Amazon is the greatest search engine, and also social media is very good for products. I mean, when you're selling a product that is specific, for particular use, whatever it is, like electronics, whatever, you can also advertise on social media and you put it in front of faces.
There was a number recently that said, I forget who it was from, and I thought it was low, where they said that 15% of all e-commerce purchases are now basically directly because of like influencers. Mm-hmm. I actually think that's low because they're not able to track the real number.
Yeah.
Like that was like, I think 15% of like, oh, this person clicked on an influencer's link or whatever. Mm-hmm. If I had to guess, I would guess that more than a quarter of all e-commerce spend is now directly through influencers.
We did a podcast on the influencers, and we may have to do another one in a week or 2 weeks or so to go more into the specific numbers, because the influencer marketing is increased.
And when I say
especially for
influencer,
micro influencers and the not the major stars,
right?
But
and when I say influencer, I don't mean just like your traditional like Instagram model or whatever.
Right.
I mean like YouTubers, bloggers,
exactly.
people on Twitter, your friend on Instagram,
people with an audience, basically.
Literally, like anything where you're buying because of the social viewing that others have bought it.
Yeah, other user-generated content in general that is talking about your product or promoting
if someone
your product.
puts on their story
reviews,
wearing
like that.
a certain product. I mean, I think if you take all that, it's way more than 15%.
Right. So again, we're talking about Google, and Google is like you said, is intent-based, and it's very good for some searches. Like if you're searching for, like you said, a lawyer or something, you're gonna pay dearly for that search, but you're looking for something specific for a situation. You're not going to see the lawyer thing. Maybe later on in retargeting or something, you may see the ad on Facebook or something, but it's not something that you like to see an ad for a lawyer out of nowhere, So now for products, Amazon is the king, and then social media does very well. For other things, obviously Google is better, but Google still is the. In fact, I think last week they declared revenues, and they were doing very well. I mean, the thing. Going from memory, but I think they say that the ad revenue increased by 40% or something in the last quarter, which also says that advertisers are getting back into the advertising mode after this pandemic, idle time that a lot of people had, a lot of companies had as far as advertising. But just to recap, because we are kind of running out of time. So Facebook advertising is a major, obviously, it's one of the major, but the main thing is. Plan your campaigns for a long term. I mean, if any agency tells you, oh, we can run a campaign for 2 weeks and it'll be great.
Facebook is the hardest to succeed at because it has the most variables. With a Google search, it's a Google search. As long as your title and description is fine, you're going to get clicks. Facebook's hard because you have to be creative. You need the content. But the benefit of Facebook is it's the hardest, but it's also the most scalable. If you can make it work, You can go from 5,000 a month to 100,000 a month. You can't do that with Google Ads. There's just with Google Ads or Amazon Ads, same thing. Like Amazon, it's like you're limited by the number of people searching. So there's 5,000 people searching a month for this. That's it. So even if you spend so much that you're literally on every search result page for all 5,000, that's it. There's 5,000
Right.
a month. With Facebook, you can go into basically infinite people.
But again, basically that's more of having a long-term plan. You cannot just say, oh, let's try this, let's try that. There's no such thing as half-ass testing. That's basically the bottom line. And Facebook has very good tools too. I mean, they have the A/B testing and all these things that you can test, and they tell you. But Facebook needs data, like you said. And sometimes when you do A/B testing, they tell you, oh, we don't have a declared winner sometimes because we had insufficient data. We didn't have enough data to show this. So, but whatever paid advertising campaign or marketing plan you have, don't plan for just a month. I mean, ideally do at least a 6-month plan and then reassess, because that way you allow yourself or your advertising agency to do all the testing. Trust me, I don't know how the other agencies work, but we do where we act as fiduciary agents for your money. We try to make you as much money as possible, but at the same time, we need to learn from what Facebook learns and Google learns to be able to maximize your return on investment or advertising spend in this case. And so it's important that we have a little more of a long span to try to plant the seeds in different places and see how they're starting to grow to get to that point, like you said, to get the 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 with a return investment that is going to be significant for your business. So any other closing points, David?
No, I think we covered it.
So you stick it to Tampa or Kansas City?
I mean, if I had to put my money on it, I would go Kansas City, but I'll root for Tampa Bay.
Okay. I don't care about rooting. I just will hope it's a good game. I'll be watching some of the maybe
I'll
some of
be
the
half
commercials.
watching it, honestly. I mean, I'm not a big Super Bowl
No,
guy.
I don't do the same thing. I mean, I just kind of Super Bowl is first of all it's super long. I don't even know who the halftime show is this year. Do you?
The Weekend.
Oh, okay.
I actually like The Weekend. I
Yeah.
Normally I don't watch any halftime Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I actually like The Weekend. I thought they made a good choice.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if they were going to have that sometimes with no spectators. I mean, obviously but they have people. So, all right, well, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for staying with us, and we'll have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl if you like it, and then we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.